I have all the parts here for my Saito 50 engine that I was expecting to get in. I got, where did I put my bearing? Here's my bearing, rear bearing. I kind of already shoved the front bearing in. It's really not that exciting if you're using a press. Here's the gasket set. So I'm basically going to just start, all my clean parts, just start assembling this engine and talk very little. Well, here's my crankshaft, the spacer, collar, and the pinion gear. So what I need to do now is put a hair more oil all over this guy, catch that gear, and actually I guess I could put a little oil on this bearing too. I'll slide this bearing in place first. Should just slide right into place. Snapped into place. So now, excuse me, in goes the pinion. Next is the collar. So just lube all this stuff up really good. I like to have a lot of oil on that. So here's my clean crankcase. Just gonna go and insert this in here. And obviously I'm going to need to press that in place. So let me bring my press over. It's in a spot where you can see it. Now I'm going to go get a socket to use as a press, because the top of this press is obviously not going to fit in there. I need something that's going to fit on that crankshaft boss, the counterweight. My apologies, apparently I thought I had pushed the record button to watch me install the crankshaft and rear bearing, but apparently I didn't actually push the record button. I thought I did. The process using my arbor press is so easy, it's hardly even worth recording here again, because I've got it in another Saito 50 rebuild video online anyway. So what I'm going to deal with next is reassembling my timing gear. For that I need the timing gear housing, the timing gear itself, these two Teflon washers, the pin, and a small hex key. Now these Teflon washers can be made of steel. Older engines, they're made of Teflon. Newer engines are made of steel. And I did put the exhaust cam follower in, but I'm leaving the intake cam follower out right now because I'm going to be using that hole to set the timing when I install this on the engine, which is why I'm putting this timing gear together now. So I'll put a little oil on here to try and help hold these pads in place. This can get to be one of those exercises where expletives can be emitted, because it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Now obviously my set screw is here, so I got to make sure that once I do get that all lined up, I don't put this in the wrong way. Actually what I think I want to do is I want to put this front one in first. And you just kind of eyeball it from the top. And slide it in place. Now this rear one is usually, well, it gets a little tougher. Now when you go to slide that in, you just got to make sure you don't twist this thing and you keep your cutout on that shaft up at the top. So this is the one where it can get kind of interesting, because you can't really... Okay, I just did it. Simple as that. Run the set screw down. Check for proper operation. It looks good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set the timing on this engine. And I just so happen to have this screwdriver that just about happens to be about 2.5 millimeters across here, which is a good diameter for dropping directly in here. So there's this hole in this gear, and this is designed specifically for timing the engine. You can either make a tool yourself. I just so happen to have this nice screwdriver. So what you do is insert that in there, and there's also a timing dot on this gear. And it just so happens that when that timing dot is at bottom dead center, or 6 o'clock, this drops into a hole and the gear doesn't turn. So the next thing is, that's ready to be put in the engine and timed. The next thing is just make sure your crankshaft is at top dead center. You have your gasket in place, and a couple of screws ready to go in. And what I'm going to do is put that darn gasket back in place. I'll hold this, and it can't go anywhere. It's not going to turn with the weight of this screwdriver holding it into that hole, so all I can do is focus on making sure I keep this at top dead center and just set this on here like that. Put a screw in, except I'm not prepared with the right. Alright, now this engine is timed. Crankshaft's at top dead center. This thing fits in the hole. I can't turn it because that's in the hole. Now if I pull it out, rotate it around, round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. But if I put this in here, and you watch real carefully, you might be able to see that drop right into that hole. Right there. And it dropped into the hole, and pinion is, or the crankshaft is still at top dead center. So I know this engine is timed, and that's as easy as it is to time any Saito engine. They are all timed exactly the same way, regardless of the size of the engine. They all have that hole in the timing gear. They can all be timed exactly the same way. So now that part's done. I can put my other cam follower in here, lube it up, make sure I put it in properly, cupped in facing up. Cam followers are in place. Now the head is ready to go on. Here's the head. I didn't bother with taking these gaskets off because they were in good shape. I don't recall if I dropped the valves on this engine or not. I've got several engines apart on my table right now. I didn't replace the ring, but this thing's got really good compression. I can feel it right now. It's not leaking. There's no gasket that goes on the head. So what we need to do here is find the rubber boots, fit up in here, put those in place, find our push rod tubes, quick wipe. Now this push rod tube has got a little nipple thing on it there, a ridge. That part goes up facing the top. So that's basically ready to go on. Now since this piston is basically at bottom dead center, I'm just going to rotate this down here real quick, and let me put a little oil in these holes. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this to top dead center, and then I'll rotate it down and guide these push rod tubes into these boots. Just kind of rotate it down to bottom dead center to seat the head. I just pushed on the exhaust valve to relieve some of the pressure so it stays at bottom dead center. make sure I'm seated here, and I've got a little bit of a pull in on my gasket here. Let me pull that out. I want that. Now, typically what I'll do is I'll just torque with a index finger and thumb basically as hard as you can without it starting, or by the time it starts to hurt your fingers. That's tight enough for these screws, and if you can't really over torque it by doing it that way either. Hi Chloe. Hi Chloe. Torqued, not twerked. And I can't even really hardly rotate that over by hand. Obviously the rockers aren't on, but it's got some serious compression right there, so that's a good thing. So next is find our push rods. Now Saito push rods, as I've said before, are not symmetrical. One side is tapered, the other end is more blunt. Now intake and exhaust can be mixed up, doesn't matter, but they are not symmetrical. The pointed ends go up to engage in the rocker arms. I'm going to put this at bottom dead center and start installing the rocker arms. I don't put a lot of torque on these things because I want to be able to then to come out again. I could have oiled them first. I can oil them now. They were sitting in my bin full of oil anyway. So it looks like they're still engaged there. Let's see if I can. I got movement on my rocker arms, but it's still too stiff to rotate it over by hand like that. So next thing do is put our brass collet and drive washer on. So I'll oil this thing up. A little oil here. There's no cutout or anything in this like there are in OS drive washer. That's why this is just a friction fit. So for now this thing's just going to fall off at will until I actually put a prop on there and really torque that down, which I'm not quite ready to do, so let me just go ahead and run this nut down. That'll at least keep this thing from coming apart. But as you can see, since it hasn't been torqued on and pressed in place, I still can't rotate this through yet. Now, I wasn't happy with this O-ring. It doesn't feel very good. That's why I bought this Saito engine gasket set, which I haven't really even used any of the gaskets out of yet, but I needed that little O-ring. Now I do have the little metal washer thing that kind of holds that in place, and that's in good shape, so I'm not going to bother putting that on. Is that the one? Oh, that's the one for the carb. Which I don't know that I'll be using either. This little bag here is the one that has that little metal gasket or metal ring, and then the O-ring for the intake manifold. So we got our carb installed. Back plates on. Basically all we've got left to do now is set the timing on the engine. That's pretty much all there is to reassembling one of these Saito engines. Now this was a Saito FA-50, pretty simple to do. Next thing you see me doing on this engine will be running it.